This is the procedural numeracy test for Year 8 pupils for 2015. Question 1. This is a BIDMAS question, so the first thing we would need to do is work out the bracket. So we leave the 8 and the 4 alone for a moment, and the bracket works out as 8. So we have a multiplication and division. They are of equal importance now, so I'm just going to work this out from left to right. 8 times 4 is 32. Divided by 8 gives me an answer of 4. All books cost £5.99 each. Work out the greatest number of books you can buy with £45. So if I estimate the price of the book to be £6, now I know that 6 times 7 would be £42, but 6 times 8 would be £48, so I wouldn't have enough for 8 books, so the answer is 7 books. Question 3. Find 25% of £36. Well, 25% is really a quarter, so if I half 36, it gives me 18, and half it again gives me £9. The time in Wrexham would be 11 a.m, and the time in New York would be 6 a.m. Later that day, the time is 14:30 in Wrexham. So what time is it in New York? Well, Wrexham is 5 hours ahead of New York. So if we know that the time in Wrexham is 14:30, if I count backwards 5 hours, or take 5 hours off, 14 take away 5 would be 9:30 a.m. For each of the numbers appearing in the table, we have to tick to say whether it is greater than a half or less than a half. Now, a half as a decimal is 0.5 or 0.50. So 0.09 would be less than 0.50, so less than a half. Now, 2/3 would be equal to 4/6 if I made an equivalent fraction. Now, I think what we can see there is clearly that that would be bigger than a half, because 3/6 would be equal to a half. So I can tick greater than a half. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a half is 0.5 or 0.50, and 0.28 is clearly less than that. 0.7 kilometers is how many meters? So what we would need to do is times by 1,000, and that is going to give us 700 meters. Question 7, 14 times 11. Now, a quick way to do this would be 10 times 14 is 140, and another 14, which gives us 154 when we add them together. Question 8. Subtract 0.09 from 0.1. Well, 0.1 can be written as 0.10, and if we subtract 0.09 from that, we would get 0.01 as our answer. Complete the 3 boxes in this invoice. Blank hours at £35 an hour gives a total cost of £280. Now, I noticed that 2 35s make £70, and 4 70s make 280. So we times by 2 and then times by 4, which is an equivalent of multiplying by 8. So it's 8 hours. Then it says plus tax at 20% of the total cost. Well, 10% of 280 is 28, and 20% therefore would be 56. This gives us a grand total, when we add them together then, of 336. Work out how many thirds are in 4 and 1/3. Well, there are 3 thirds in one whole. So because we have 4 wholes, we would need to do 4 times 3, which makes 12. Not forgetting the extra third we have. So that is 13 thirds altogether. A 250 gram block of cheese costs £1.80. Well, that means a 500 gram block of cheese would be costing twice as much. So that's £3.60. Therefore, a 1,000 gram block would be twice as much again, which would be £7.20. Now, what we can do then is divide both those numbers by 10, and that would give us that a 100 gram block of cheese would actually be 72 pence. Question 12. 1.24 and 1.25 and 1.26. So if I add up the decimal parts, the 0.24 and the 0.26 add up to 0.5, and the 0.25 in the middle number gives us 0.75. If I add up the ones, then we get 3.75. Question 13. 2 people order egg on toast, 3 people order curry with rice, and 1 person orders fish stew. Estimate the total cost to the nearest pounds. So 2 people order egg on toast. That is 2 lots of £2.50, which is £5. 3 people order curry with rice, so that is 3 times £7, which is approximately £21. And 1 person orders a fish stew, which is another £7. If we add up those 3 numbers, what we get then is 21 and 7 is 28, 28 and 5 is £33. 90 times blank equals 0.9. Now usually when we multiply, numbers get bigger, but in this case it's got smaller, 10 times smaller. So the number we're multiplying by is 1/10 or 0.1. Round 777,777 to 3 significant figures. So if I cut my number off after the first 3 figures and I look at the fourth 7 will tell me to round up the 777 at the front to become 778. And then the final 3 digits will be replaced with zeros. The 6-figure grid reference for Grove Farm is 480330. Write a 6-figure grid reference for Caradog Farm. Well, if I look across on the horizontal scale, we can see that it's in between 46 and 47, so that would be 465 as the across 3 digits of the grid reference. And if I then go up, I have to go up to perfectly in line with 35, so it would be 350, which would be the last 3 digits. Work out the volume of this cube. Well, volume of a cube is length times width times height, so it's 3 times 3 times 3, which is 3 3s are 9, 9 times 3 is 27 centimeters cubed. The pie chart shows the proportion of cats and dogs in a rescue centre. The lighter colour is the cats and the darker colour is the dogs. So the ratio of cats to dogs is 1 to 2, and that's because the proportion of the pie chart for dogs is twice the size of that of cats. Then it says the ratio of dogs to cats is 1 to. So basically, because the light section is half the size, we can say it's 1 to 0.5 or a half. Work out 5 cubed minus 5 squared. Well, 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. And 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. And if we subtract, we get 100. Circle the fraction that is closest to 0.6. Well, if I start with 3/6, that is better known as half or 0.5. At the other end, 7/10 is 0.7. 2/5 is the same as 4/10, making an equivalent fraction, which as a decimal is 0.4. And the third fraction, if I turn this into 100ths, I can do that by multiplying top and bottom by 5. I get 55 over 100, which is 0.55. Therefore, the closest to 0.6 is the 0.55, so I'm going to circle 11/20ths. This is a conversion graph changing between degrees Fahrenheit and degrees centigrade. So we've been asked to work out what 13 degrees C is in Fahrenheit. Now, in order to do this, we would take a look at where 13 would be. Well, 14 is going to be in between 12 and 16, So 13 degrees would be in the middle of 12 and 14. So when it touches the line, we read down, and our answer would be somewhere in the region of 55 degrees F. When the temperature goes up by 25 degrees Fahrenheit, what does the temperature in degrees centigrade go up by? So what I'm looking at is trying to find somewhere on this graph where I've got a difference of 25 degrees on the Fahrenheit axis. So I start by looking in this position here, because if I go across from 50, I can go across to 75, and then I can go vertically up to the graph. And what I can see is this value here is, starting value is roughly 10 degrees C, and the end value is approximately 24 degrees C. So what we're looking at is a rise of round about 14 degrees to 15 degrees C. The reciprocal of 2/5 would be 1 divided by 2/5, and we know that when we divide by a fraction we flip it and multiply. So 1 times 5 over 2 would give you 5 halves. So it's much quicker to think of it as just flipping the fraction upside down. Work out the area of this shape. So this is a trapezium, and the formula for a trapezium is half the sum of the parallels, so that's 3 add 5, times the height, which is 3. So that works out as a half of 8 times 3. So half of 8 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12 centimetres squared. The original price of this TV was £3,000. It's been reduced and it is now £1,200. So that means that this TV has been reduced by £1,800. We have to circle the percentage below that shows how much the price has been reduced. Well, what we do know is that 10% of £3,000 is going to be £300. If I times that 10% answer of 300 by 4, 4 300s would be 1,200, and 4 10% are 40%, so it's been reduced by 40%. The scatter diagram shows yearly birth rates per 1,000 people in countries across the world. What type of correlation does the scatter diagram show? It shows a positive correlation as it slopes upwards. The birth rate now in a different country is 45. Use the line of best fit to predict its birth rate in 30 years. So 45 would be in the middle of 40 to 50. Now, if you take a look at where that touches the line of best fit, that is approximately in the middle of 20 to 30, so I would give an answer of 25 years. How many litres is 6 pints? Well, if 4 pints is 2.27 litres, what we would need is we'd need another 2 pints. So what we can do to the 2.27 is we can half it. Now it's better to think of the 0.27 as 0.270, and then half of 270 is 135. And if we add those two numbers together, what we would get is we would get 3.405 litres. 20 people answered the questionnaire. 3 people gave a score of 1, so that's a grand total, then when you multiply of 3 points. 9 people gave a score of 2, which is a grand total of 18 points. And everybody else scored 3. So 9 and 3 is 12 people so far, so that must mean that the 8 remaining people answered 3. So that gives us a total of 24. Now when we add these 3 numbers up, 8 and 4 and 3 is 8 and 4 is 12, 12 and 3 is 15, and 2 and 1 is 3, and the one we carried is 4. So 45 is the total score. So if we then do 45 divided by 20, because there were 20 people, that will give us our mean score. So dividing by 20, we can do this by dividing by 2, which is going to give us 22.5, and then we can divide by 10, which is going to give us 2.25 as our average.